Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be doing a review of The Daughters of Izdihar by Hadeer Elsbai. Now this is a debut fantasy book that I was approved on NetGalley for an e-arc. I rarely ever get approved on NetGalley, so I got this and I've been reading some really heavy stuff lately and I just wanted something a little bit different. I wanted a different world, I wanted different characters, I just wanted to immerse myself into something completely new. So when this came through, I was like, oh, okay, this is actually quite a nice, pleasant surprise. And it was a really nice, pleasant surprise. So a quick summary of the plot. We are essentially following the story of two young women who are fighting for their rights and their identity, set against the backdrop of a brewing war between the Kingdom of Zorana and the Ramzawi Republic. There's a lot of politics, there's a lot of kind of introspection in this book. It is a very character-driven book, and without further ado, let's just jump into my review. So the good. There are so many good things about this book. The world is really vivid, stunningly vivid, and you get a real sense of what this place looks like, from what the streets look like, to what the shops look like, to what the clothes look like, to what the food is like. There were moments in this book where Hadeer mentions certain food. So this is a Middle Eastern, kind of North African, Egyptian inspired fantasy. And so, you know, as somebody who has kind of been immersed in that world, and I love Arab food and North African food. And so she mentions a lot of really familiar food. So one example of that is that she talks about knefe. Knefe, there's different variants. There's knefe or knefe, which is how she spells it in the book. And it's this like really, I mean, like I said, there's different variants. It's this really delicious dessert that has often semolina, and then it has like cheese underneath, and then they pour this like incredible honey syrup on it, or sometimes rose water on top of it. And it's just this like really sweet dessert. And she mentions that a number of times throughout the book, and it just brought me back to moments when I had had that. And she actually caused me to go out and buy some because I was craving it after hearing about it or reading it numerous times in the book. So you really get this sense of what this world is like. You know, if you're somebody who is somewhat familiar with kind of North African Arab food and, you know, architecture, then it's going to really paint some familiar imagery, which I really appreciated. The next thing that I really liked and that I think is just really solid is her writing, especially for a debut. I mean, even without it being a debut, it's really solid writing, but the fact that it's a debut makes it even more impressive, in my opinion. The prose flows beautifully, the dialogue is really impactful, and I just felt like she told the story really well. I feel like now that I've read quite a lot of books, I have a sense of good writing, and I just think that she is a good writer, and I think she's got a really bright future ahead of her, and I can't wait to see what else she does. The next thing that I loved, and I mentioned this kind of at the start, is that this is a very character-driven book, and therefore you kind of have to like the characters. You have to buy into their motivations, at least. You don't have to love them, but you have to buy into what they're doing. And we're following two main POVs. We've got Nihal and then we've got Georgina, and both characters are really fleshed out. They're very different. I enjoyed both POVs equally. I think I liked one character more than the other one just because I identify with her more, but I think both characters will give you something. I feel like with a lot of like dual POV or multi-POV stories, there's always one that you prefer, and there's always, you know, one that you're less interested in. But with this one, I love them both, and I think that's kudos to the author for being able to write two really fleshed out characters. So as I mentioned, there's two. So we have Nihal. She's the one that I identified more with. She's very strong-headed, strong-willed, opinionated. You know, she has an idea of what she wants to do, and she won't let anyone stop her from being able to achieve that, which I really kind of sympathize with. And then the second character, Georgina, is kind of the opposite, I guess. She's very sensitive. She's very, you know, she's very in her head. She doesn't like to kind of cause issues. She doesn't like to kind of throw a ruckus, even if she's really passionate about something. But she's also very kind. That's why I really like these two characters, because they do contrast really nicely. There is like a secondary cast as well, and they're all interesting characters. I wouldn't say any of the characters felt weak or that they didn't feel fleshed out. There were certain characters that I wish we just had more time with, but look, it's the first book in a duology, so I'm hoping we'll get some more time with those characters in the second book. The next thing that I will touch on are just the broader themes of the books. Now, there's a lot of themes covered in this book. This book is set in a world where women don't have any rights. If they want to buy property, they have to have their husband buy it on their behalf. If they want to get a job, the husband has to approve. Women have to basically get married. There's no real, there's no real kind of concept of a woman going out and starting her own career and working for herself. There is none of that. And so everything has to be done via the husband or the father or the brother, whoever is the kind of person who is responsible for that woman. This book is really centering around women's rights and their place in society and giving them more of a voice and giving them a say. There's also other minorities, people who are on the spectrum of sexuality, as an example, who anybody who isn't in a kind of heterosexual relationship is deemed as a kind of taboo, I guess. And so there are other minorities at play here too. There's also a lot around classism. Nihal is a very rich woman. She's a noble woman. And Georgina is very poor. She doesn't really have much opportunity like Nihal does. And I think that also feeds into their characters as well, because Nihal is a noble woman, because she can get away with a lot more. I think that's why she's able to have a voice in comparison to Georgina, who can't have a voice because she will just get arrested. That's how divided these two women are. And I think it's just an interesting analysis, or commentary, I should say, even within the fact that all these women have pretty much zero rights. There is still a hierarchy. The rich women at the top, the noble women at the top, still have more rights than the poor women at the bottom, who have literally zero rights. So I think it's a really interesting take on that. The other thing I'll mention on themes is this kind of idea of magic being feared. Magic is a very cool part of this story. The magic is really cool. It's like elemental magic, which I haven't really read in a while. And I like elemental magic. I think it does what it says on the tin. There's this very, very deep-seated fear of magic because of previous events that have happened prior to this book. And I won't say anything more than that because it will spoil it. But there are events that have happened that have led people to fear magic. On top of the fear of women, there's also this fear of women who have magic. So if you're a woman who has magic, you're even more screwed, basically. The last thing that I am going to mention is the fact that this book is kind of set in different environments, if that makes sense. We have a lot that is set within family homes, and then we have set in the city, and then we also have this kind of school backdrop. There is this magical school that up until the point of this book only men could go to. Well, women and men could go to it, and then that event that I mentioned happened, and then women were no longer able to go to it, so only men were able to. And then they've reopened the school so that a small amount of women can go to it. And so there's this kind of school setting, which I really enjoyed. I was not expecting that, but it was quite a nice change from just being in the city or being in the homes. I kind of like the fact that we're kind of all over the place in different chapters, and it just kept the book very fresh. So the setting was really interesting as well. Now on to, maybe some of the things that other people might have issues with and kind of maybe potential improvement. It is important to remember that Hadeer is a debut author, and like I said, I think the book is generally phenomenally written. My only personal issue was that in places it was a little bit repetitive. I just feel like some of the phrases were repeated, and I genuinely just think that if an editor had maybe reread it again, they would have been able to tighten that up a little bit. It's not the end of the world. It really doesn't take you out of the experience. The next thing is more for other people. I love character-driven books. I've said this a gazillion times now on my channel, but a lot of people aren't going to necessarily like that. There isn't tons of plot in this book. The plot really kicks off towards the kind of last maybe 30% of the book. So if you're looking for a really plot-heavy story, then you're not going to get it, at least at the start. So just be aware of that going into it if you feel like it's quite slow. But I loved it. I really enjoyed the world building. I really enjoyed the characters, and I just felt like we were getting a lot of familiarity with the world before things really kind of hit the fan, and I love that. So I gave this book a 5 stars. It's absolutely fantastic. I just felt like it was really vivid. I really loved the themes. I really loved the characters. I loved everything about it. And I actually pre-ordered this book before I got my e-arc. And I said to myself, I'm going to read the e-arc, and if I don't like it, then I'll just cancel my pre-order. But suffice to say, my pre-order is still in. So that should just give you a kind of signal as to how much I really enjoyed it. So if you have any questions, ping me down in the comments below. If you've read it, let me know. But I doubt many people have read it because it's not even out yet. But I think it comes out in the UK on the 12th of January. I'm not sure about the US, but it'll be around the same date. I will add in the pre-order links down below. I will also add in Hadeer's Twitter and her Instagram down below as well. But look, it was fantastic. Go read it. 5 stars. Nothing can really go wrong, let's be honest. Thanks for watching, folks. It's lovely to see you all. I hope you're all having a great start to the year, and I will see you soon in the next video. Stay safe, take care, and see you in the next one. Thanks.